thought it would be good to sort of wind up our engagement with the Song of the Grassroot Hermitage with the last few lines. And so I'm sorry I didn't ask you to do a screen share. Do you have it available, Kate? Great. So let's read it together. I'll announce it and we'll read it together as we usually do. Song of the Grass Roof Hermitage. I've built a grass hut where there's nothing of value. After eating, I relax and enjoy a nap. When it was completed, fresh weeds appeared. Now it's been lived in, covered by weeds. The person in the hut lives here calmly, not stuck to inside, outside, or in between. Places worldly people live, he doesn't live. Realms worldly people love, he doesn't love. Though the hut is small, it includes the entire world. In 10 square feet, an old man illumines forms in their nature. A Mahayana Bodhisattva trusts without doubt. The middling and lowly can't help wondering, will this hut perish or not? Perishable or not, the original master is present, not dwelling south or north, east or west. Firmly based on steadiness, it can't be surpassed. A shining window below the green pines, jade palaces or vermilion towers can't compare with it. Just sitting with head covered, all things are at rest. Thus, this mountain monk doesn't understand at all. Living here, he no longer works to get free. Who would proudly arrange seats trying to entice guests? Turn around the light to shine within, then just return. The vast, inconceivable source can't be faced or turned away from. Meet the ancestral teachers, be familiar with their instructions. Bind grasses to build a hut and don't give up. Let go of hundreds of years and relax completely. Open your hands and walk innocent. Thousands of words, myriad interpretations, are only to free you from obstructions. If you want to know the undying person in the hut, don't separate from this skin bag here and now. So I'm starting with the line, who would proudly arrange seats trying to entice guests? And I'm going to move through this fairly fast so that we can conclude this reflection today. So she too has just finished making a comparison between jade palaces and his grass hut. And I think this line is part of that thought. Often people assess the quality of a program or a teacher or a political leader or any sort of person who attracts attention by how many followers he or she has. And so she too is asking about ambition, I think. The ambition that a Zen teacher might have to attract many students by setting up chairs in a fancy temple and giving a wonderful talk. And this question, who would proudly arrange seats to trying to entice guests, is a put down of such efforts, because that's not the point that he's trying to communicate. He says, instead of that, the next line, turn around the light to shine within and then just return. So instead of seeking affirmation from outside, he says, turn inward. And of course, this is Dogen's backward step. I think we can take, what do you think? Should we take down the screen share now, and so we can see everybody can see faces, or what do you think? What's best? Yes?
You're going to be saying the lines, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we can take the screen share down now. Thanks, Kate. So this is Dogen's backward step. Who Dogen articulated it, 5 centuries later. So it's as though I think that she too has caught himself in a moment of ambition. He's up here on the mountain, living very simply as a simple person, And, is his practice any good? Is it of value to people? So he's caught himself in a moment of ambition, perhaps fame seeking, power seeking, worldly success of some kind. And it's a very human moment, I think. He sees the attraction and he lets it go, shifting his attention inward as we practice again and again in Zazen. And Ben Connolly says, just return and let the calm, wordless mind of awareness illuminate. Nothing from outside, only from the illumination of the inner light. And so this is, I think, a kind of moment when the teacher is teaching himself. And I confess, I do this all the time. I give myself little Dharma talks. I catch myself thinking of, oh, this is a good insight, and I can use this in a Dharma talk. And I catch myself, doing that, and then it's not rejecting that, but not rejecting the one who has some ambition or plan, but shining the light of awareness inward and returning to just being present, and also returning to in a sense, returning to the marketplace as the ox does in the ox herding creatures. You go inward to be outward. And then, but he says also, the vast inconceivable source can't be faced or turned away from. So it's not a matter of picking and choosing. When we return, as we learn to do in Zazen, just in the simple act of redirecting our attention to our breath, suddenly the vast illumination of awareness is present. Suddenly we become aware of awareness. It isn't necessary to grasp after this with greed or reject it with hate in order to achieve something. It's just there, illuminating everything, making everything clear, and opening the way. In the next line, meet the ancestral teachers, be familiar with their instruction. And this is a point in the poem where I feel, he can't help teaching. He's a teacher, he just can't help himself. So he's telling us, what teaching is that he's been trying to communicate, if we haven't gotten it already. He's had a realization and an insight, and he wants to express it to us, to his students. We're his students. And so this is the person that he is, the teacher, and it's just how the Dharma is expressing itself in his life, in this unique life. And so he advises us to be familiar with the teachings of our ancestors. Ben Connolly says, the practice of students and teachers meeting one-to-one, mind to mind, heart to heart, is central to the Zen tradition. And we are encouraged to engage with our teachers and with the great body of teaching texts as our family, with lots of love, with imperfections, aggravations, and disagreements, to meet the text with our whole selves. And then his next instruction is bind grasses to build a hut and don't give up. And here he's returning to the grass hut metaphor of the self. And he's suggesting that turning inward is where the true refuge, the refuge that our ancestors encountered, is found. And he encourages us, as Norman Fisher says, to just keep going and be a benefit to others. And this is the Mahayana way. And it takes courage and commitment to live the way of Zen. It's not so easy to build a hut of grass, to build a life of simplicity and integrity. It's hard to face the self of greed, hate, and delusion, and to let go. Fortunately, we don't do it alone. We do it with the help of the ancestors, our teachers, and Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, all present to us when we return over and over again. And then he says in the next sentence, then to let go of all of that and relax completely. So it's not either or, it's both and. It's both bringing in and letting go. And Connolly suggests that this letting go is of holding on tight to the limiting concerns of our limited lifetimes and their beginningless karma, to let go of the long, long string of our worries and hopes and take a moment of ease. And this is a moment of freedom from karma. However, he says, if our mind is trained in meditation, sometimes we just can see our thoughts and feelings come and go. And we can see that they do this on their own, that they are just our conditioning, our karma doing its thing. And we have a moment of freedom. He further says, one of Buddha's innovations was his emphasis on karma as caused by volition, by intention, not just action. And then I'm paraphrasing here. Each moment of our lives presents us with an opportunity for choice toward the alleviation of suffering. And when I was thinking about this sentence and his commentary, I was reminded of a school of theology in the Christian tradition called process theology. And it's the idea that the omniscience of God, the all-knowing aspect of God, is much more like universal awareness, and that is constantly present, no matter what we do or even intend, offering what's called the salvific option, the option of salvation, and we could say the option of illumination or of enlightenment. So that no matter what we do, there's always the opportunity to course correct, and do something that's more wholesome and helpful to ourselves and others. So, Connolly says, to be at ease is the way, and it is the fruit of the way. Going further, open your hands and walk innocent. There's a wonderful book that some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with by Uchiyama Roshi called Opening the Hand of Thought. And I remember when I first read this book and Grace was teaching it, she would show us her hand in a fist like this, and how hard it is to open the hand of thought. You can feel it. It creaks open. And then it's open, then it's open. So it's hard to unravel all the tangles of our beginningless karma of body, heart, and mind, but then there is the openness and it's there. And then sometimes it gets easier like this. So when we're not grasping, not clinging, we're free, relaxed, and innocent of greed and hate, which is the second step, right? And there's no urgency for the self to harm, to suffer, and to cause suffering. We return to a kind of original openness and innocence. We're undefended and without aggression, just simply entering the world. The next line, thousands of words, myriad interpretations are only to free you from obstructions. And we've said this many times, that for a tradition that is that fundamentally does not rely on words, there sure are a lot of them. And sometimes and we do have the tendency, and particularly perhaps in our culture, but maybe not, because certainly in China, scholarship was highly valued. And we tend to think that the more we know intellectually, the more scholarly we are, and the more proficiently we can quote Dogen, the more enlightened we are. But Shuto says the value of these ancient teachings is that they point us to the way. They're a finger pointing to the moon, and they're not the moon itself. Connolly says, the teachings emphasize the value of non-conceptualization, of seeing how language divides and narrows our relationship to the world. We use concepts in Zen only to point to the inconceivable. And of course, interestingly, this is the basis of koan practice, where the words deliberately trip you up so that you can't move to the understanding through some sort of intellectual process. And in the end, the way is not about understanding the teachings, not about grasping them intellectually, and not about preaching them. It's about embodying them and enacting them. Not preaching them, but being compassion and being wisdom. And continuing, if you want to know the undying person in the hut, don't separate from this skin bag here and now. So this is Shitu's own koan. Undying person. It's a contradiction, right? There's no such thing as an undying person. But the whole of the Heart Sutra is contained in these two words, because form is emptiness and emptiness is form. No birth, no death, and no extinction of it. Connolly says, Shitu's final instruction is to realize timeless intimacy and arrive at the deep peace he shows throughout this poem. And the way to do that is to just realize this body in this place, in this time. Our life is enough just as it is. Skin bag and all, flimsy bag and all. It is enough. And then a final quote, a couple of quotes from Connolly. According to the stories of the Dhammapada, which is a collection of stories and quotes from the Buddha that was recorded in the Pali Canon in the 1st century before the Common Era. According to those stories, when Buddha experienced enlightenment, he said, among other things, house builder, you have now been seen. You shall not build the house again. And he saw through his tendency to build a sense of self that was separate from other things, and he let it go. Thus, he let go of all the anxiety, anger, and desire that accompany feeling separate. And so, by seeing our tendency to build, promote, and defend ourself, our own very self, through the practice of Zen introspection, we become free of the demands of self, free to see ourselves in radical relationality as fully part of the myriad dharmas of the 10,000 things. And this is how the undying is revealed. Thank you, everyone.